right, we're back with another episode of the On the Wagon podcast. First ever interview here today. We're gonna have Arron on to tell his story. He is another Wisconsin guy. Uh, well, Arron, I'll just introduce you right now. You're up in the Marshfield area. That's correct, right?
Yes, that is.
But you're not a true Wisconsinite. Were you born in a different state?
Yes, I was born and raised in Oklahoma.
So do you call yourself a Wisconsin guy, or do you call yourself a
I'm a
Oklahomian?
Okie. I'm a Okie.
in Okie. But we're gonna get kind of into Aaron's story, and he kind of reached out to me, and he's a part of our business connection we got. I got to know Aaron about a year ago, and we kind of gained our friendship here in the last, what would you say, probably last 2 to 3 months, running into each other at conventions, and we were just in Miami. So it's been a pleasure, and he's excited to be on the podcast, as I'm happy that you're on as well.
Yes, I'm very grateful to be on the call with you today, and I'm just great that we're doing things to achieve results in our life and to better ourselves, because that's what it's all about.
I can't more agree with you. It's been a rowdy, or not rowdy, wild, 3 months of me in my sobriety. You've been along a little longer here, but kind of still on that same recovery track, we can say. So, Aaron, why don't you tell us, a little short bio about yourself before we get into your story, where you're at currently.
Okay, well, I'm 30 years old, and I'm a father of two. I've been married almost 12 years. I moved to Wisconsin when I was 18, and I met my wife then, and we moved in together, and when we were like 18, 19 years old, and we've been living together ever since, and been supporting ourselves. We got married, and we started to have a family. I don't have any education besides high school and education and what I've taught myself. My wife has a bachelor's degree, and there's no utilization of it. My wife doesn't drink or do anything like that. I come from a background of alcoholic father. My father was a vet, suffered from PTSD and chronic pains, and he also had other medical conditions that, he wasn't disabled physically, but or mentally, but like he just was in a lot of pain. He was always suffering, and so his Band-Aid was always the bottle or pills from the doctor. So that really started hitting my father heavy when we were 13. Or I was 13, my sister was 11. And my parents split up, and my mom had left. And my dad, he tried to, I think it was more of a cry for help, but he'd slit his wrist open one night, drunk, and I had to call the ambulance. That was a very traumatic experience for me. I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood. I was easily influenced by my peers. I did a lot of nonsense when I was a kid. And I'm grateful to be able to talk about it because I've been able to evolve and see where I was and where I'm at now. And I'd rather do things in this life as a father and a husband, focused and clear-minded and sober, than anything else. I've been sober since May of last year from alcohol, and it's not a problem for me because I've seen what I become when I'm under the influence of alcohol, and I don't like that person. So it's easy for me to remind myself to never go back to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm very grateful to be sober every day and not even have to worry about not being sober. I'm probably a little extreme. I despise alcohol and tobacco use, and I'm very disgusted by it. That's my personal opinion. I understand everyone's not like that, but because of my personal experiences with those, I dread that they still exist and that they're still available to consumers because of what they do to people.
Right. I can agree with you. When you say with despise, I've kind of going through that right now where, being in places where people are drinking, and, my view on it is different than yours, but you've also had a huge, a completely different background on yours where I personally got to learn to think, okay, this is their lives. I know that it's not, some of these people can go out and have one or two drinks where it took me 14 years to realize that I'm not that person, right? So that's kind of where I'm at. And it's kind of cool that you're on a different side of the spectrum because of, you growing up with your father and him being, a war vet and him going through those things where you have seen so much more uh, on that side of things than I have, where I was more of a, all right, I'm going out Friday night, I'm drinking all day Friday, I'm drinking all day Saturday, and then usually when nobody's out, I'm at a bar by myself on a Sunday. So it's kind of cool that we got those two different perspectives in here.
I agree with you. Yeah, my perspective was never that I had to drink all day or that I would want to drink all day.
Right.
I was one of those people that would have a few, get buzzed, but getting drunk is where the line switches. It's where that flip switches. Or switch flips.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. When I'm super heavily under the influence and I'm not myself, I don't have control over what I'm doing. I'm disrespectful to people.
Yeah.
I'm angry. I'm quick and reactive. And then a statistic I think I looked it up is that about 10,000. It's about 10,000 a year people are dying in accidents that involve someone under the influence of alcohol every year in America.
I know that's and and especially in this state, we are just so. It's just like the normal thing to drink so much and drive. You know what I mean? I got an OWI about 10 years ago, and that didn't stop me at all from drinking, and it was bad. Like when you go back and look 10 years, like I didn't get in an accident, I didn't hurt anybody, but I had somebody in the car and I was like 4 times over the legal limit. Well, I mean, I very easily could have killed somebody or myself that night. But OWIs are kind of overlooked still in this state as a kind of a slap on the wrist, because if you see people are getting 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at a time, or over a span of time, where I just think we just come from this drinking state that's a huge issue.
Yes, I certainly agree with you, and I've noticed that it's almost like it's socially acceptable to be a raging alcoholic.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. I mean, just look at going to a Green Bay Packer game, like you on a Sunday, and I'm one of those guys. Like I needed to drink a lot before even going in the stadium, and then really when you realize it's like, okay, you're paying all this money to go see a professional, awesome, football game, and then you hardly remember it when you leave, and then you drink on after the game and on the way home, and then you end up at a bar afterwards. Like it's just crazy, and that's normal. That's a normal football Sunday here in Wisconsin.
I know it's very unfortunate, man. I've never been able to physically put myself through that, but I know that my experiences from when I drank, my body rejects it because it's poison. So I'll end up my head spinning and I'm throwing up.
Yeah.
And it's just like, why would I put that in my body to begin with?
Right.
That's just my view on it.
Oh, I agree. And as later in life, as I've gotten older, I'm 32 now, so really close to your age. That was this last, I'd say, 2 years. Like I could feel like my body was starting to reject it. Like I was getting sick at night. I never did. I very rarely threw up. I very rarely got the spins. I just would black out. And now, just as of recently, it's like, oh, I was getting sick every morning after I drank and was just in bed till 12, 13 hours just because I couldn't move. So that's a great point you brought up. It is seriously a poison, and I'd get the sweats, I get the rapid heartbeat. Like that's your body telling you, hey guy, this isn't good for you. And I'm glad you brought that point up, because I think a lot of people realize some hangovers, but mine were getting to like an extreme, like I'm hungover for 3 days afterwards. Now, granted, I was drinking a lot more than usual people, but that's a great point that you brought up.
Yeah, it was always a social thing for me when I was drinking, but I would know my limit and I wouldn't go past it, and if I did go past it, I paid for it.
Right.
And then I didn't drink for a duration of time after that.
Yeah.
And then when I was near the end of my drinking, which was in May, like I believe it was April or March, something like that. Game of Thrones, the last season of Game of Thrones started airing. And I was drinking wine at home. I was just drinking some red wine, and that's all I was drinking. I wasn't drinking anything hard, wasn't drinking liquor, but alcohol's alcohol, and you can still get drunk after you consume enough of it. And it doesn't matter what alcohol I would consume. I would usually go for something that would get me a buzz. I wouldn't do beer. I wasn't a big beer person.
Okay.
But it'd be either liquor or wine. And getting drunk, I'd just get mean. I get mean and hateful, and I say stuff I don't mean, and it's not fun. It's like I don't ever want to be that person again. I think they call it spirits because it literally changes your spiritual presence.
Yeah.
When you're under the influence, you're not normally the person that you would be.
Right.
So for it to be so accessible to the public, I think is what the major issue is. But are they raising the drinking age to 25?
Yeah, I don't know. I know they just switched. Didn't they just switch the vaping law? Wasn't that up to 21 now? I don't know. Do you think that's going to change anything though, like on college campuses, or do you think it's just going to wanted to get it more and illegally purchasing it and having people buy it for them? I'm wondering if that's going to be an issue.
From what my experiences are in this world, if you want something bad enough, you can find it, and it doesn't matter your age. If you've got the money and you can find the connection, you can get what you want.
I know.
Which is how this world works.
Yeah, that is true. So I guess
hopefully the parents are doing their job.
Yeah, that is true. It does start. I agree with that too. If the parenting is there and people are learn about the consequences and issues. But for me, I never drank in the house, very rarely. So that's it's just crazy how you come from an family of alcoholism and some substance abuse problems, where I came from nothing of that and still gained that allergy, that physical for drinking, and right. It's just weird how different backgrounds do matter where you come from, but sometimes it's like out of the blue.
Well, and we know as the law of attraction, whatever we feed our mind and our being is what we become. So whatever habits we have going on in our daily lives will impact us in our futures.
Yeah, and I think that's true. Like you said, that's true with anything, not just addiction, but
right.
In your job or your family or your relationship with your significant other. I think that is a huge bullet point, and that's kind of like what this podcast. It is about drinking and some of the wild stories I went through and other people's went through. But in the meantime, it's like we got to figure that stuff out as well.
Yeah, self-awareness is a huge key.
Absolutely. So I want to say, so what happened? When in May? I know I've known you I knew you just before then, but what changed? I know you said drinking wasn't a huge problem. You knew when to stop, but was there a rock bottom, or was there an actual change? Like, I'm gonna make myself better because of why? So that's kind of what I want to get out of you here.
Yes. So it was the Northern Regional at the Kalahari.
Okay, and that was so for our listeners, we meet as business owners. We had a convention in the Wisconsin Dells area for our Wisconsinites listening. So sorry, go ahead.
And then I drank some wine. I think I drank one or two too many glasses, and I went back to the room that night, and my wife and my children were in there, and I was drunk, and I was not nice to my wife in the least. I was very mean to her, and I remember I got very emotional too afterwards.
Right.
Yeah, that's when I'm drunk. My emotions get really bad. They're all over the place. But yeah, it was that incident that I had seen how much I had affected my wife with just getting drunk off of wine, and I just decided that person did never need to come into my wife's life again as drunk Arron. So I just eliminate it completely and it doesn't even bother me. I never had physical cravings. It was always a social thing for me.
Yeah. And
it was always just a social thing for me. I was never somebody that would drink alone.
Right. And that was with me too. Like, it's hard to explain with me. Like, it was always started in a social setting. Like, I never came home and said I need to drink by myself. But I would always drink with friends and go out. But then, we'd go out Sunday after a Saturday night, and everybody would go home, and I'd stay out. That was kind of the thing that hampered me with my issue is is exactly. I love being in the social. I never got angry being drunk. I was more of felt more looser, more talking to everybody. That was me. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So because it wasn't, that's why I say when I say rock bottom, it doesn't matter that you got handcuffed and tased after a bar outing. Like you drank too much at a business thing, right? A function, and it didn't treat your family with respect and your wife, and it's just crazy that little different points that just hit you, and now you've been sober for we're coming up here almost on a year, which is awesome.
Yeah, I know. I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, and like I said, from one person to another. I mean, I'm almost 4 months in, and I just one day at a time for me, and then all of a sudden, then you start realizing that better things start happening, and your relationship starts getting better, and stuff like that. So I'm glad you shared that story with me.
Yes, sir. And then growing up, seeing it when I was a teenager with my father, his drinking habit was he was a binge drinker.
Yep.
And he would not have anything to nutritionalize his body after constantly drinking and dry heaving. He would just grab a loaf of bread and think that a few pieces of bread would be all he would need in between days of drinking.
Yeah,
and
that's crazy.
It impacted his health quite a few times. My dad had been hospitalized. He had pancreatitis. He had the gastro bypass surgery. He was hypoglycemic after being diabetic first. I believe that alcoholism can cause diabetes for some people as well when it comes to the pancreas and things like that. My father, he experienced some of that stuff because of his alcohol abuse. So that was growing up with my father, and alcohol eventually is what took his life.
Yeah,
because he was in pain. He had ruptured discs in his back, things like that. And then my mom's husband, who he's been sober, I think, for close to 8 to 10 years, something like that. But he had been the alcoholic the entire time I knew him, and he was the one that would. My mom would find all the vodka bottles and pour them down the drain. He had one stashed in the basement she wouldn't know about. That's the type of drinker he was. And then I remember there was one time we were driving on the interstate. I believe it was from Minnesota. Or from Oklahoma. We were driving from Oklahoma, and he wanted my mom to get off on an exit to get some alcohol, and he pulled the steering wheel over in the middle of the interstate and could have hurt all of us.
Yeah, I'd say that's insane, right?
Yeah. And there was even one time I recall that I was driving him around here in Marshfield and got pulled over by the trooper, and he had a can of beer that was open, and he just dumps it out underneath the seat. And if I had been actually 18 or older, I would have been charged as an adult.
Yeah, you would have been.
But I was 17 at the time, so I didn't have anything to worry about other than. But he did. He got himself. It was his first ticket, I think, an open intoxicant ticket or something of the matter. But
right.
Yeah, he had punched me in the head one time when I was driving too, and yeah, he was the physical abusive person when he would get drunk.
Yeah, I mean, just isn't it crazy how alcohol can do different things to everybody that we talked about, including ourselves, how we're all different, how it's just like, some get extremely violent, some get, rude and obnoxious, some get, happy and go lucky and will talk to people. It's a crazy, and alcohol truly is a drug. And I think that's,
yes, it is.
And I think that's how we, like you said, living in this state and even in the country, it's just not looked at it that way.
No, I would think that alcohol is the worst drug, and it is the gateway drug because it's the one that gets everybody loose enough to try other things.
That is very true. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
And it's not. They don't talk about it like that. And I mean, there's still alcohol advertisements. I mean, they're minimal compared to what they used to be when we were growing up.
Oh yeah, they're a lot less, but they're still there. Absolutely.
Right, and what else? When the Super Bowl, there was lots of people that I guess complained about Shakira and Jennifer Lopez's performance. They're entertainers. They've got to look good when they're doing it, but they were fully clothed. and people were saying that it's inappropriate for children. How is it any more inappropriate than all the advertisements for alcohol that the children are seeing during the Super Bowl, or the fact that these are professional men who are almost playing a blood sport out there, sacrificing their bodies in a brutal way? How is that any different too? I mean, I love my football.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, but my point is, I think alcohol and a brutal sport is a little bit like, how can you say that a performance by some performers is against people?
Right.
Or not against.
No, I get it, and I mean, in some of the too, like now in today's like society too, it's not just the beer. They still promote the beer but they don't really promote the hard stuff anymore. But they're promoting these flavored seltzer waters, and like the White Claws and stuff like that. And I could tell you right now that I could drink at least 12 of those and not, I mean, be drunk, but they don't taste like they don't taste like alcohol. So all of a sudden now you're putting those in the bodies of freshly 21-year-olds or 18-year-olds that are high school kids that are getting access to it that taste like a glorified soda basically. I mean, I think that's I could and sales like that are through the roof for that, and that's exactly why, because it doesn't taste like booze, but it's giving it the same effects.
I hear you.
But I it's a bummer, with that's good, especially at this in this area of the country. It's just like nothing. You'll see every Saturday. Even last night, I went to the grocery store and drove down Main Street, and every bar was full at like 6:30 on a Sunday night. And I know some people don't work Mondays, but it's like, man, it's Sunday. Sunday is like a family day and like a recovery day of from your job. But those bars are full, so I always see that as
Right.
a potential issue down the road. But it's hard, like you said, it's hard to tell people that because that's their lives, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Yet they're
different.
used to them habits.
Yes.
Yeah, and then back to the way that alcohol affects people emotionally. It's a depressant. It's a drug that's a depressant all day, and I just don't understand. Some people, they like, as lifestyle coaches and consultants, when I'm reaching out to people and they tell me they're depressed, but then I see them drinking every day and they don't want
Yep.
to put down that bottle. That's part of your problem right there.
Yep, exactly.
But you got kids. You have kids. Be a parent. Don't get drunk all the time.
Yeah, it's just it's a mask, right? And I think we know, like Lewis Howes has a great book, the Mask of the Mask of Masculinity. But he goes into talking about stuff that men and even women do, not even with addiction or anything like that, but just certain character traits. Really good book for you or any of those listeners. I love it to listen on that or read about that.
Yeah, and I think that no matter what somebody's experiencing during being drunk, typically you'll see people are depressed at the end of their night too. Like, I believe the last time I went out with some friends, there was a guy who got drunk and he puked everywhere, and the bar gets shut down, and he's not even coherent enough to leave the bar, and he's getting literally carried out of the bar and like causing a fuss on his way out of the bar. I don't want to be that person.
Yeah, I don't miss. Yeah, and I've been kicked out of bars. I've had things with that too, and it's just that next day, like you don't realize it, but then the next day when you're starting to get all these, oh look, wow, you were wasted last night, or wow, I can't believe that happened, or how are you feeling? Like I hated getting those messages, because then I knew that I was out of control, and I do not miss that one bit. And with my anxiety, I had, even with the supplements I take now, but that help with regular anxiety, when you're putting a chemical into your body like alcohol, it doesn't work with it. So I've been so much more happier and mindset has been so much better since stopping drinking.
Yeah, I agree, and I pretty much covered everything I have to say about it. I mean, I feel like it's a gateway drug, and it's a depressant, and unfortunately, it's super accessible. And
yeah.
When you're driving through Wisconsin and on these back roads, you will see a little unincorporated town. They may not have a post office, they may not have a church, but they will always have a bar.
Yeah, that is true. And like I said, like most of these smaller towns, even that are have a population, are their bars and churches. That's it, and a gas station. And what can you buy at a gas station? Alcohol.
Right.
It's but to close things up here, Aaron, why don't you kind of tell what it's like right now? Like what's your experience, being sober, and maybe point out some good things that have come out of not drinking, and where your kind of future goals are.
Well, yes, absolutely. My focus and my ability to be there to help people and to be fully intuitive at the same time, because I don't have anything clouding my judgments or my actions. I'm firing on all cylinders because I'm sober, and I love it, because when I'm not, I feel like I move slower. I can't get things accomplished like I would normally be able to. So just gratitude, being grateful, gratitude list, and a goal statement, having the ability to focus on those and to really achieve some results. That's way better than drinking at a bar. I mean, if that's if that's your results that you want to achieve, is to just go sit in a bar and spend your paycheck, I want to help you.
Yeah, I think this pod kind of gives a perspective of people that with me and you have come from different backgrounds that had some issues with alcohol. I'm glad that you shared your story, and I think your future looks bright for you, bud.
I certainly appreciate it, my friend, and I'm here to support every person that's recovering from alcoholism for sure, because I've been on every side of it and I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
No.
Kudos to the people that can do a regular once or twice a week and be fine. That's not for me. It's not my type of daily living that I prefer. But it's unfortunate because Marshfield has dozens of bars.
Yeah,
there's at least a dozen bars here, and every weekend there's people there. A lot of people are playing darts and pool,
Yep.
and some people aren't drinking. Some people are just soberly doing the things that they do in a bar, and I have no problem with that either. And I'm able to function in a bar sober.
Yeah, and that's good that you can do that. I'm learning. It's been a little difficult for me, but I'm working on it, right, bud?
Yes.
Just close things out. Do you want to let listeners know any social media that you want to follow, your Instagram handle or anything like that? That'd be good.
Yeah, you can go to my Facebook. That's Arron Cusick, ArronCusick. You can friend request me or follow me there. And then my Instagram handle would be ScorpioMaster69. I'll follow you back if you follow me on there. And then my Twitter is going to be Cusick, Cusick, or it's at Cusick _ Cusick, the letter Q, and then SICK.
Yeah, and I can post them on our post too. So.
Yep, it's at Cusick, and then the letter Q _6.
So yeah, for our listeners, go ahead and follow Aaron, and he's always got some inspirational stuff that he posts, and you can kind of see what he's doing and how he's staying sober and the good things that are coming for him. So I really appreciate you coming on, buddy, and I'm sure we'll see each other pretty soon here.
Yes, sir. I'll be seeing you this month sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, we're wrapping things up for the week. Don't forget, we are getting launched on iTunes this week, and also follow us on our Instagram on the Wagon Pod. Otherwise, one day at a time, stay sober, and we'll talk to you next week.